All right, hi, this is Matt Henderson. I am the Director of Instruction at TPC Las Vegas, and thank you for tuning into this presentation. On the screen, you'll see a little bit about me. I'm a PJ professional and have been teaching at TPC for the better part of 10 years now. I did spend some time as a competitive player and an NCAA Division I men's golf coach. And in that time, I was able to be around some people dispensing some very valuable information as it pertains to playing golf and managing ourselves on the golf course. And so I want this presentation to reflect some of that, and that is where this is coming from. So if you're a current student, I'm sure we have been through this in a live situation out on the lesson tee or on the golf course. This could be a great refresher for you, and if you happen to just stumble onto this info on the internet, it is should be some valuable bang for your buck, so to speak. So here we go. A big reason I want to run through this is I want to be able to kind of go through the idea that there are more ways to get better than simply making a mechanical change in your golf swing. This is a very big game, and there's a lot of stuff going on. And so anybody that has taken a lesson from me would at least get a small amount of this information kind of sprinkled in. And I think it's very, very important to look at this game as there's more going on than simply the mechanics of the golf swing. And I think we often get lost in that, especially in the digital world, because the golf swing is so easy to talk about. So what could you learn in this presentation? Kind of the general things of what is course management. A lot of people don't know really what that term means, and I don't know if we've done a great job of really defining it. How to select quality targets. It's a really big deal. What clubs I should hit if I'm in between clubs. That's sometimes where we have a lot of problems. So hopefully we'll answer that one in here. For our competitive players, right? College, junior, typeset, competitive amateurs. Okay, I have an opportunity to play a practice round. What on earth should I even do with it? How should I look at it? A lot of our time gets really misused there. There is some college coaches that do a phenomenal job of preparing their teams to play a golf course, and then quite honestly, there's some that don't. So not everybody is privy to this information, and that's why we're speaking about it here. It's very important. How to build and make yardage books. We can maybe get into some of that here. What might I do with some of my practice time to actually help this? What is a shot pattern? Those things are all going to be described as we go through this. And a big deal is putting in another visual is basically here's the hole we're going to be talking about on the left. We're going to go through the situation of basically how do I take the hole that I am kind of seeing out in space like this on the left and turn it into the information that we see on the right? Where now I have a shot pattern put into it. I have a target line. I have a game plan established for how we're going to go about playing that hole. So that's what this video is about. It's going to be about learning how to build what you see on the right. Even if you do that in small forms, you don't necessarily have to have that written down in a yardage book. You don't have to have it structured exactly like that. But at the same time, you can at least have your mind working like that. So here we go. We're going to pick on hole number 2 at TPC Las Vegas. So out at my home course here. And I think it's a great hole to do this with because it's so severe. Like you can see, this is there's the tee box up there, right? So we're hitting tee shot down onto the screen. It's about 190-yard tee shot from the very back hole. That's not adjusted to slope. That's just the kind of the straight yardage, so to speak. But you can see if you miss to the left, it is there's not a whole lot going on down there other than just rocks and losing your golf ball. So it's basically an island green, and I think that presents some very important things from a management standpoint. We'll take another look at the hole. Again, the tee box, there it is back in there. Here's a drop zone back in here. So if we hit it, there is no real lateral hazard or anything on this hole. So if you hit it down in the penalty area down in there, we proceed by moving to that drop zone. So we'll take a look at this hole, and here's how we're going to take a look at it. And if you're building a yardage book, I think this image becomes very important. And let's say that you are going to go to a course and you're a competitive player and you don't have a Straka book, you don't have a yardage book, you want to build something. I think Google Earth is where this image came from. Google Earth is a really nice tool, and basically we're taking this image and we're more or less turning it into this image, and this would be something that kind of actually would go in the book. And you can do this in really fancy ways, kind of like we see here, or you could do this with a Sharpie and a ruler. We have a target line, so we have where we're going to aim on that hole. We have relative pin placements to that target line. We have areas that we have to avoid, and then we have areas that hey, it's going to be a really statistically probable short game area. And so again, that's the info we're going through. Let's get through it, and we're going to do the first thing of picking probable short game areas. And disclaimer here. Here's once you look at this image, I think it's important to go through. It's impossible to do what I've done on this screen, which we'll highlight in a second, of choosing my probable short game areas and my non-probable, i.e. the red. It's impossible to do that on Google Earth itself. Now, I think you can select tee shots and stuff like that, but I think this is what you're doing in your practice round. This is, if you've played the course a lot and you're very familiar with it, I think you can go through and do this. But there's a lot of this that is understanding your personal tendencies, your likes, your dislikes, and short game shots, your ability to read lies. And you got to think, in the average college tournament, players are only getting one 18-hole practice round, so you're only seeing each hole one time before you're basically thrown to the fire. And with junior golf, a lot of times you don't get a practice round. In resort golf, there's no such thing, right? So sometimes we're seeing the green complex for the very first time from, essentially standing back on that tee box back there, right? So if you played the course before, I think you go through mentally and you basically make this chart. Hey, if I hit it in the red, it's a really tough short game shot. Not so good, right? I'm probably going to make bogey from there, knowing my short game tendencies. If I'm in the blue, I got a pretty good shot of at least getting it on the green and getting it fairly close to that respective pin. And that's all you're really doing with this. And what I want to do is I'm going to cycle through and kind of see some different pin locations here. So we go from kind of back left there to front right, and look at the red and how it changes. So again, there's front right, look at the red, and then now look at the red with back left, right? So, and again, what that's doing is I'm doing this off of my personal feelings of hitting short game shots on this hole. And so this is me saying, I like to hit lower short game shots. I like to hit shots where I don't have to add a lot of loft. And if you look in this area right back in here where that cursor's going, some of the knowledge that I have of this is sitting here going, this is a sloped area with very tightly mown grass, and it's generally fairly sandy. So it's a very, there's some divots and whatnot back in here. It's a tough short game shot to get back to this flag, because I'm going to have to add some amount of loft, which is going to change my effective bounce on my wedge, and I don't like hitting that shot. So I'm going to plan myself to where basically I don't leave myself in that area. The only way it would be better to be in this area back in here where this cursor's going is it's way better than being there than it is here. So we can always keep that in mind as well. But now if we go in and go to a back right pin placement, you can see again, we'll go look at the difference in how the area is changing, right? Again, blue is conducive. And so I do have some of the green itself highlighted right here because honestly you cannot get back to that pin placement from there because it slopes back down into this bunker kind of, and it puts over this ridge. So the closest, if you're putting it from there, the closest you could get to that pin location, even with a putter, you know, putting it on a green is probably 10 or 15 feet. So you'll probably have to putt it in this general area. Same thing with this red in the bunker. It's downsloped right in here. I don't want to have to hit a downslope bunker shot onto a you know, a short-sided pin location. Now, you know, over in here when it's on this upslope, it's not as bad as you might think. I think it's plausible we can hit that bunker shot, right? So that stuff does change. Important to note, you're doing this stuff on the fly, right? This is very quick. You're assessing it. Remember, I've got 5 or so minutes up on this green complex to hit a couple putts, hit a couple short game shots. I'm not expecting you to go through this with a fine-tooth comb. You're really just sitting here and going, okay, I got to X out this back right area. I got to X out this short right area. And then this is really pretty quality short gaming. I can hit a lot of shots in these respective areas, right? So pretty quick and to the point with that. And, you know, if you have a book itself, you might make little X's, little O's, and make it look something like that. You might use different colored Sharpies, or you could just be kind of making notes. If this is your home course and you're an amateur, just make little notes and be like, hey, I play here all the time. From now on, just don't hit it long right when I play this hole, right? And so when I say statistically probable short game shots, just to go through that real quick, generally, and that's why it says general, is for most of the folks, if we can keep you in with more green to work with, we're going to be better off, right? If we can keep the ball lower to the ground, more often than not, that's going to be better with us trying to get it super high in the air. But I think the biggest thing, and it's circled right there in red, is whatever shot you have the ability to hit under pressure most of the time is what you're really planning for in those scenarios that we saw on that screen. All right, and that is the big thing, because that is potentially going to be different for every single one of us, and we have to know, you know, hey, you know, I'm super nervous. I'm not real good with the high ones, or you know, I've seen players work. Quite frankly, it's the opposite. So know who you are. Structure these previous charts around that, right? Now, what we do is how we'll start to do this in a practical way here is we'll add a scale. I want you to add a scale of 1 to 3. 3, we're going to pop a 3 on there when it says, hey, penalty area. It's a very difficult shot. You know, quite frankly, it's just if I can barely get it on the green, if I hit it really good, probably a really tough situation. 2 is challenging. It's a low percentage, but you know, I can get 20% somewhat close to the hole, something like that, or you know, under 50%. 1, hey, this is my most probable area. It's going to let me hit my short game shot, and we're turning the previous kind of sum up of things in our red and blue, and we're turning it into this. So just like we saw right here, hey, it's 3 down in here because, again, it's a downslope, it's sandy, it's a tight lie, it's very tough to hit short game shots back in here. This isn't too bad. It's got some slope to it, but it's usable. We can hit a shot from there. 1, I think this is an easy bunker shot to this pin placement. There's really not much to it. It's a nice bunker. There's good sand in it. And then right in here, this one right in here, obviously we got a straight shot to it. There's not a lot of slope. We've got a ton of green to work with. This is statistically our most probable short game shot. And then I put this 3 in here. Not every hole is super well defined, you know, and has this cutout where it's an island green. You know, on your courses where you guys actually have grass and it rains and all that good stuff, This might be something where this is just a big old grass bunker, or could be a lake, something like that, and just don't hit it there, basically. So that's kind of what that is there for. And it's something to keep in mind is as you're plotting these out, you're always, again, keeping in mind the pin placement. Don't forget that. Don't forget that, because it could change. So now let's go through this a little bit more in depth. There's what we're doing. We have our areas charted out. We've got our short game stuff. Now the only piece left is we have to put a shot pattern to this, and the shot pattern is going to be the big deal. And so we're going to call that part 2 of this video. You've survived part 1. Hopefully this makes sense with your short game areas. And so if you're still here, here's what we're going to do. I do have college prep programs and schools that discuss this very stuff. We go through all this, the ideas with the game. We go through recruiting, practices. We go through the mechanics of the golf swing, how to practice, and then plus we discuss how to play, which is such a big part of the game. You can find that information at my website. The other thing is, if you're interested in the online set, and you've made it this far here, there's a promo code. There's the hyperlink. My website, online lessons, and you can enter that playing lesson 1 promo code right there, all lowercase, and you can receive a substantial discount. So let's go to shot patterns right here. And this is the big stuff, and this is the part we've probably talked about in a lesson. We're just putting some really good visuals to it, and so here we go. This is me personally kind of going through, and I got a new set of golf clubs, and I was gapping them out. And I would recommend doing this. These are very small sample patterns, which we should probably note, because that is important. As large sample patterns go, larger the better. Larger the better if you're doing something like this by yourself. This is a small one, but at the same time, it's still valuable info. And the other thing, I was hitting it pretty solid here, and so that has a lot to do with the depth of the pattern. So not so much the east to west of it, but the north to south of it. And so we'll keep that in mind as well. I have some higher handicap patterns that we'll throw in here, but I just kind of use this as an example. So what we're going to do, since it's a 190-yard hole, we're going to grab the 6-iron out of this, and that's about the club that we would use on there. So we're going to grab that pattern, and we're going to put this pattern of golf balls. It's a dispersion pattern of 9 or 10 golf balls, and we're going to see what that dispersion pattern looks like and how we would put that in play on a golf course. So to kind of understand this a little bit, here's the actual measurements, the lateral of this. If you look, the farthest right golf shot is right there. It's the first one. It's almost 15 yards right of the target line. And then let's find the farthest left one. Farthest left one is 10.8 yards left. And beyond that, the next farthest left one is only 5 yards. So that one, that left one right there, that's a little bit of an outlier. I don't know what happened there. But at the same time, that if we add those up, 10 to 14, so we're looking at a 24-yard pattern. So that yellow circle right there is 24 yards from its far right edge to its far left edge. Okay, now the next piece is the depth of it. So if we look into here, I have one that's carrying at 190, it looks like, and I've got 191, and then I've got another one that is at 183. So I've got a 10-yard, well, not 10, but we've got, what, an 8-yard difference in carry between those respective clubs, and that's a 6-iron. So that is, again, what that pattern is so it's 10 yards at its depth, and it is 24 yards at its width. Now, what we're going to try to do with that is come on down into here, and we want to basically be sitting on that tee box and going, I need all of my golf balls to be in play on this grass surface so I can hit my second shot. They don't necessarily need to be on the green, but they do need to be on the surface, and that is basically the whole sum up of this second piece, is trying to arrive at where I put a target line to put those golf balls in play so we can play golf most of the time. And it still doesn't always work that way, and that's why you see tour players hit it out of bounds. You see tour players miss greens in not so conducive spots, and it just happens to the best of us every once in a while. It's a tough game, right? But most of the time we want to put all the golf balls in play. So how do we start arriving at this? It's understanding. Let's go back to our kind of our Google Earth here, and we look at this green in a little bit of a different light, in terms of not just the green, but I want to pick on this whole center of mass of this usable area of grass, right? And so from on the front edge of the green, it goes all the way. We have 29 yards to work with. We have 31 at the middle of it, and we have 33 at the back of it. Now, if we're dealing, remember, I got a 24-yard pattern from left to right with this 6-iron. So 29 yards should work just fine to get all the golf balls in. So should 31, and so should 33, right? And so hopefully, look at that visual. I think this is the supreme visual to take away from this is, I'm not, if there's a front pin down in here, I'm not sitting here aiming at the pin to where I get golf balls. Now look at this, I have golf balls in the desert to the left. We wouldn't do something like that, right, on purpose anyway. So there's that. Now the next one is, let's start putting this in here, and if we go to the back pin, let's say we have a back pin like you see on the right. All right. Now if we take our information of our short game area, and this is why we did this first, because now I have this short game information. I've got a back pin. Well, what happens is, since this is a 3 and we don't want to hit a golf shot here, what starts to happen is this is no longer 33 yards. It's really, since this is a 3, I really have 14 feet of usable space back in here in this hitting area, since we do not want to be in this area where you see that cursor going, right? It's a really tough short game shot, right? So it's not 33 yards anymore, right? And something to look at as you do that is, imagine we come up into here and, okay, I have all my balls in play, so this is pretty quality. Now I'm going to move it back here to a pin high distance, but now I've got half of my golf balls sitting down here in a short game area that is it's going to be darn near impossible to make par from, especially with this back pin. And this is where players get themselves in a mess a lot of times with club selection. And so this kind of goes into the note of, all right, we're talking about how to select a target line here. We're also talking about how to get in between, if you're in between clubs, which club to choose. You know, let's say you laser this thing at 193 and you have a 185 club, right? And you're like, goodness, what do I, well, in this case, I would put you in that 185 club every single time, because you got to think, in playing this hole, right, hey, I've got 4 balls down in a number 1 area right here. This is the easiest short game shot to that pin location, is being in that bunker. So we have that. So I'm going to take my 4 balls that I missed the putting surface, and I'm going to give myself the best chance of making par or something relative to it over a period of time. The other thing is, I've got the rest of this sitting down on the green. I don't have anything really close to the hole, but this is a tough hole. This is one of the lower handicap holes on the golf course. This second hole of the on the golf course. There's no reason to sit here and make a big number in your second hole on the golf course and get your round of golf off to a bad start. 3 is a really great score on this hole, and 4 isn't half bad. All right, especially when the wind starts blowing. So this is exactly what we would want to do. I would put the target line, which is the middle of this pattern, and you can see that there's a red line, very faint, kind of pop up right there. I would put that target line right there, right? And now I have 50%. My left 50% is on the green. My right 50% is in a quality short game area. And I don't have to deal with this mess that I have back here. And this is assuming that, you know, if I fly a ball to this back shelf right here, that it's actually going to stay there. Because, again, knowing your golf course, there's a good chance it's going to bound back here anyway, right? So this is how we would play this respective hole with that pin placement, and I hope you understand that, right? How our short game idea that we put out before has now altered what we're going to start to do from a full swing standpoint, and our knowledge of what our pattern is has really shaped everything we've done. And quite honestly, that's really, really good info. It took me a long time to learn that as a player, and some very nice information from some pretty smart people. And that's really it. So what I'm going to do now, you're more than welcome to pause the video. I'm going to do the exact same thing for a higher handicap. So if you're interested in seeing the exact same information presented in a little bit different way with basically about an 8 to 10 handicap, that is what's going to happen right now. But for the competitive player, yeah, go through that again, go through that with a fine-tooth comb, and then if you want more, keep watching. So here we go. Here's the higher handicap, somewhere in the neighborhood of a 10. And you can see what happens. So this is now a 7 iron. And so the little bit bigger of a sample pattern, and you can start seeing not only is it just, it's maybe about the same width, but look at the depth of it. The depth has changed substantially. And if we go through and kind of look at that, you know, he's got golf shots going, okay, I got one that carried 154, and we have one that carried 183, right? So that's a changer, right? That's definitely something different than what we just saw. So if we come through and we go, well, gosh, I've got really 20 yards plus from, you know, the far of this pattern to the short of the pattern, and then we have what's our dispersion. We're going to look outside. We're going to move this over in here. So now he's got a 15-yard right golf shot and a 19-yard left, right? So now we're talking mathematically challenged here. We're talking 35 yards with a 7 iron. And so you can start seeing what happens with skill level to some degree, right? And so generally when you get into these patterns, you're going to see a tour player is going to be about the same at 200 yards as the average amateur is at 100 yards, right? So that's why tee boxes, playing the right tee box is a very big thing. That way you have a higher lofted club going into the green, so inevitably you're going to have a smaller dispersion pattern that we're looking at here, right? So let's go through and let's look at this, and what we're going to do is we're going to use this pattern in the respect of 2 different pin placements, right? 2 different pin placements. So first one, it's that yellow triangle right there, and we'll kind of move this out of the way for a second. And so we've got that same pin placement, that back right pin, but look at how when we put this thing, and there's that orange line you see on the screen is the target line. And so we're picking the target line using the whole center of mass of this green area and coming in and making sure we have most of our golf balls in play a good majority of time, right? And so now if I hit on the right 50%, there we go, I have some down in the short game area. And then if I hit the left 50%, we have them on the green. And it's important to note is some days we always seem to be on the wrong 50% of things, and that's just one of our more challenging rounds of golf. And then some days, you know, we happen to be on the correct 50% of it, and we can, you know, put some pretty good scores in there. It's weird how it works out, but I hope this makes sense as to why we would want to do this. We don't want to come over in here and aim at the, like in this instance, I would not aim at the middle of the green, right? Because if we aim at the middle of the green with this player, he's going to have golf balls, he's going to have multiple golf balls in that desert over there, right? So in this case, I would actually aim at the right edge of the green with this particular player if I was caddying for him, right? Knowing his pattern. So sometimes aiming at the middle of the green is not great advice, right? That doesn't mean it's not good advice all the time. It just means that sometimes it's not great advice, right? So I would rather have this player aim at this right edge of the green, because now we'll look at, we have at least all golf balls in play, and we can go from there. Okay, now with the depth of this pattern, so you're going back to the idea that this is 25 yards from where the cursor is now to up in here in the top part of this area. All right, so now if you come in and we say, well, let's have a pin placement that is down here in the short right, I would have this player hitting the exact same club that they hit to this far back pin. All right, I'll say that again. Let's say they're hitting the 7-iron to this back pin. I would have them hitting this same exact club to the front pin right here. All right, and the reason being is, again, look at all the golf balls in play, right? And now, are we gonna, you know, make a lot of birdies on this? Probably not, but you're going to shoot lower scores by saving par rather than making birdies. All right, and that's a supreme thought to start taking into things, because if you take this pattern and you move it down here like this and you adjust your depth, sure, you've got one close to the pin right there, and you've got one kind of sitting over here to the right of the green, but you've got some short game shots going on down in here that you may or may not be able to execute, and there is a ton of golf balls in the desert, right, rattling around in the rocks down in there, and that's not going to do anybody any good. You're just going to lose golf balls. You're going to shoot higher scores. You're only going to par this hole at 20% of the time at most, yeah, all to make one birdie every 15 times you play it, right? Whereas if we do this, right, I'm going to make par, you know, how many times are you going to two-putt from these areas? You know, let's say, you know, statistically, you're probably going to, on the low end of things, you're going to two-putt, let's see, 4, 5, you're probably going to two-putt 5 of 8 of those most of the time. It's still not, that's a pretty good percentage. And let's say you don't three-putt all these 3 back in here, you only three-putt 2 of them. Right, there you go. And then now up and down percentage-wise, let's say your up and down percentage is 50%. Well, now you've got 6 golf shots sitting down in this area. So now you just made 5, 8. You just made 8, 9 pars out of 15 shots, and then hopefully you didn't make any doubles in here if we go through the sample pattern. That is how you lower scores, and that is why I want you to start thinking about how your patterns are moving in terms of depth and left to right. I know we've talked about this down on the tee. This is the visual to start putting it in action. Let me know if you have any questions. Certainly a pleasure talking to you. Make sure and check out my other videos. There's going to be another video coming on tee shots and the same thing. And please leave questions in the comments section below. Thanks for watching.